Welcome back to Same Right Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this class, I'll be teaching you how to sew this pattern gown. It's actually Ankara combination with plain, as you can see right here. So I'll be teaching you how to sew this gown from the drafting to the sewing, as you can see right here on the dress form. So I will implore you to stay till the end of this tutorial and be patient. So I will be beading all these plain areas. So by the time we are done beading, it will come out exactly as it is right there on the video and on the thumbnail. So if this is what you want to learn, I will encourage you to stay till the end of this tutorial to learn more. So please be patient. Alright people, so I'm done sewing. As you can see, my stitches all around. So I'll come over to the neckline. I'll make notches, just notches. You can even reduce the seams at the neckline. You can also decide to reduce the seams. You can decide to make notches, anyone. So I'll just make notches. You can see where I stopped my stitches. Okay, I left all of this open. That is where I'm going to turn this from. So I'll just go ahead and make notches. So if this is going to be bulky for me, I can decide to trim, reduce the seams. So I'll just try turning it first. Okay, so if it's too bulky, then I'll reduce the seams. But if it's not, I'll go ahead and leave it the way it is. So I'll just turn it from here, as you can see. So I'll turn it, but for this part I'll surely reduce the seams because this part is pointy. So since it's pointy, I don't need seams at that point. So you can generally go ahead and reduce the seams. Okay, so it will be easy, but you have to be careful you don't cut through your seam line. So I'll just get something to turn. I just get something like a seam ripper, something sharp this way. You can see how I'm bringing it out, but that part is actually very pointy. Then I can put it in and push it out a little more. Okay, or you can also use your scissors to push it out. So whatever you can use to push, just go ahead and do that. All right, so now I'm going to give it a good press right now, but I'll first go over to the machine now. I'll turn it this way and sew till I'm no longer able to sew. Then use my hemming gum and close it up. You can see I'm ironing it now with my steam, and this is the parts I left open, which I told you I'll use my hemming gum to seal up. Okay, so I'll just cut my hemming gum and insert it in there. Can you see? So by the time I insert it, I'll just arrange it appropriately, then place my iron to close it up. All right, so I just try testing it to be sure what I ironed out is relaxing on the neckline as we want it to. So this is what I have. You can see that it's laying nice and beautiful. So now this is number 3, which I told you is going to be the last one to be placed. Okay, so now I'll go over to number 2. This is my number 2. So I'm going to also lay it the same way I did for the other one. So I'm going to lay it right side to right side. Then I'll also leave a part of it open. Okay, I will sew this way, then leave somewhere under below open. So let me do that. So this is my number 2. I'm done stitching it, and I made sure that I have 1.5. You can see everything is equal at 1.5. So I will prefer to reduce the seams. I reduce the seams for the other one. So the seams, you have to reduce them very, very, very closely, but you need to be very careful. Okay, so you can see that the stitching line I left here open as usual, just like we did in the last one. So I'll just go ahead and finish up the reduction and turn it around, give it a good press, then stitch close a little bit, and then I'll proceed to give it a good press. After reducing the seams, this is what I will have at the end of the day. So I'll just go ahead and turn it. So I'll just turn with my you can use your scissors, you can use anything that can bring out this edge. Okay, so I think my scissors is bringing it out for me. Then this part will be a little difficult, but you can go ahead and use your scissors, you can use your screw. In fact, I would advise you open this at the center. Okay, that was the mistake I made. If you want it to be turned very easily, just open it at the center. So by the time you put hand here and here, you are done. So now I'm done with this, you can see. So the next will be number 1. Okay, so I'll set number 2 aside. Then number 1, I'm going to repeat totally the same process. So this is the one we are going to lay on the 2 sides of the mesh. So I'll just use the same method, but for this is the armhole. I will leave it totally open, so I'm going to stitch only here and turn from here. So let me do that. So this is what I have at the end of the day after stitching half an inch. So like I have been doing for the rest of it, I'll just go ahead and trim. Then after trimming, I'm going to turn. So I'll just turn it. You can see this one is actually very easy. So I'll go ahead and give it a good press. So this part is the armhole, and that is where we are going to stitch our sleeves. So let me give it a good press. I'll do this. I'm done. So this is number 1, and I'll put it on fabric. So I'll bring my dress right now. So we are going to stick number 1. Okay, so number 1, I'm going to sew this to this. So you have to make sure it aligns. Can you see? It's going to align. So I'll just hold it down with my pin accordingly. Then I'll go over to the machine. I'm going to sew like top stitching. So make sure you align it. So I will do that for the both, for the right and the left side. So you can see what I have. So you just have a single stitch at the back, and it still looks neat. So I've held 1. So next is going to be number 2. So for number 2, I'll simply get the midline. This is the midline. Okay, so I'll just secure it with my pin on the midline, and I'll simply get the midline of this. Very important. So I'll just measure it, what I have from there. I'll just take my time to measure to the other dots. So here I have 8 3/4. So the midpoint of 8 3/4 will give me, I'll have 4 1/4. So I'll just measure my 4 1/4. Remember, I'm using this other part of my tape. So my 4 1/4, this is where the midline is going to be. So I'm going to arrange this like this. So I can just take off what I have here. So this is going to be, note that we have our lining below. So we are going to lift this lining. We are not stitching on it. You lift the lining before you pin. So I've lifted it. Everything I lifted it. So I'm going to top stitch on top of it as I lift my lining. So I'll go over to the machine. I'm lifting everything. I'll take my time, top stitch, top stitch, okay, till I get to this point. Okay, so I had a little shortage here because of the two nets. Okay, the two net is just, you know, sagging up and down, so I'll just raise it up and place. When I get here, I'll make sure it covers up to this point. So I'll do that now. All right, so now I've sewn from here and from here. Okay, so I left here open. I just left it open because I'm going to cover it, so I didn't bother to stitch that part. So once you are done with that, note that our sleeve will go in this way, so by the time it goes here, you will not be able to see what is happening there. So I'm going to place this, find the midpoint, make sure it aligns at the shoulder this way, at the neckline, sorry. So I'll just make sure it aligns appropriately. Then I'll stitch the neckline neatly, stitch this to the end like this. Later we are going to use a bead to decorate it at the end of. All right, so I just want to show you how I pinned it. Okay, so I pinned only on the two mesh. So when you are pinning on the two mesh, make sure no part is squeezing. Okay, I first aligned it on the neckline, then I have to straighten it. Can you see how I placed my hand? You have to stretch it this way because I'm going to top stitch on top of it up to this point before the lining. I also stretched it and I'll top stitch. Let me do that. So this is stitched only at the two, so you can see I just stopped where the two stops. Okay, so make sure you align your neckline very well while stitching. So I'm going to restitch this part to align it. Okay, so after that is done, you now have to remove the lining. Okay, you remove the lining and put in your hand and pin for the part of the bustier. So for the part of the bustier, make sure you lay it the way I'm holding it now, or else it's not going to lay well. So I'm pointing it towards the center front, so I'll just hold it down. I'll take my time and hold it down. Then I'll go over to my machine now. I'll start from here to stitch, or I can continue, shift the lining, continue the stitching till I get to the end. So we are done with the front. I'm going to sew the back and join. So for the back, I'll simply go ahead and join the neckline. That's the first thing I'm going to do. So I'll bring in lining to lining, fabric to fabric. Lining and fabric for each, lining and fabric for each. So I'll sew the neckline now, then I'll go ahead and join the shoulder. All right, so now I'm done with the back. So this is what the back is. I top stitched the lining and the fabric. So I'm going to lay it now this way. So I'll just pick up the front and I'm going to close it up. So I'll go over to my machine and run my stitches. I'm done with the shoulder line, as you can see. So the next I will do is to start fitting my dress. I'm going to fit fabric to fabric and lining to lining. So I'm going to sew it off at 2 inches. So I'll sew it and give it a good press. Alright, so I'm done joining the sides now. So we have the back and the front. So I'm going to set this aside, then we'll cut the down piece. Alright, so it's time for us to start the drafting of the down part of this gown. So for the down part of this gown, I want to draft it because of the facing we have the skirt slits at the center front. So I'm drafting the center front. So this is my center front, and this is the waistline that is connecting the upper body. So for this waistline, I'm going to place my half length. So the half length I'm working with here is 18 inches. I'll place it on this line, and I'm going to measure the length is, you place it. So I'm placing 18 inches here, and my waist, my hip is 29. Okay, I'll count 1 2 for the upper hip. Then my knee is 42. That is, my actual knee is 42. Shoulder to knee 42. So I'm going to count 1 2 3 4 as my where I will connect the extension. Then the full length of this is 61. Okay, then I'll just add 2 more inches. I'll add 2 more inches to the floor length. So I'm going to rule all these lines now. I'm going to rule them. This is 4 inches above, which is the knee line. This is the hip, actual hip, and 2 inches above for the upper hip, and this is my waistline. So here is my upper hip, and this is my lower hip. Okay, so this is the knee position, 4 inches above your actual knee position, and this is the floor length. So we have the center front. So this is the center front. So I'm going to impute my necessary front measurements. So my waist I'm working with, I'm going to impute my waist measurement here. So my waist measurement here is 10 inches. So I'll mark my 10 inches. My hip circumference is 11. I will mark at the upper hip is 42. Divide by 2 is 10. 4 is 10 and a half. I'll mark the same 10 and a half. Okay. Then on the knee, I'm going to take away 2 inches from 10 and a half, or 1.5 inches. So if I take away 2 inches, I will have 8.5. But I just want to take away 1.5 inches, so I have 9 inches. So I'm going to place my 9 inches. So the next thing I'll do is to connect these lines. First, I'll connect the upper hip straight. Then I'll place my pattern ruler to the waist, and then I'll connect it to the hip line. Then what I have here, this 9 inches, I'll go over here and mark the 9 inches. So I'll mark the 9 inches, and I'm going to extend it by 6 inches. So you can do 6 inches, you can do 8 inches. So it depends on how big your fabric is. And so I'll position this way, and I'm going to take it all the way. So that is how it's going to look like. Then at this point, I'll come up by 1 inch, so I don't have any pointy edge, and I'll connect. Alright, so once I've connected it to that point, I've eliminated what I have here. So if you want, you can come in a little bit if you want it a little more fitted. Okay, but I don't want it too fitted, so 1.5 is okay. So that is what we have for the front, and we are done. So now we want to create the design for the slit, which is the main reason I have to draft this. So the slit is going to be, depends on if you want it to be above the knee or below the knee. So it depends on how you want it. If you want it actually the way it is right there on the thumbnail, it means you are going to connect this. Okay, so now on the hem, I'm going to go in by 5 inches. And this 5 inches, I'm going to connect it all the way to the knee. So remember, this was the marking for our actual knee before we step up. So I'll just come down by 4 inches and have it the slit at the knee. Okay, so it will just be at the knee. Then I'm going to connect. So let me just do 4.5 because I'm seeing this 4 inches. So I'll just do 4.5, and that 4.5 I'm going to connect it. So what we have here, I'm going to trace this, what I have here, out. Okay, so that is the yellow design. Okay, you are seeing right there. So I'll trace it out. So by the time I trace it out, I'm going to cut 2 times of it because what we have here will be on fold. Then being on fold, we just simply open up here, okay, both for lining and fabric, then stitch it back. Of course, you see how we'll do it. So we are done. Now we are going to cut the back adjustment on this triangle. Okay, this is exactly where I want it to open, but that does not mean that that is where I want my triangle to start from. So I want this triangle to start at the knee line. So I'm going to reconnect it now and then take it to 5 inches. I think it's better that way. So this is where our 5 inches falls. So I'll take that measurement again at 5 inches. So from here I have my 5 inches. Okay, or we can do 4.5, or better still, we can do the 5 inches. Okay, let's do 4.5 so it's not too much. So this is the 4.5. So I'm going to connect 4.5 straight to the knee, above the knee line. So please, this is what I'm going to trace out. So I'll just go ahead and trace it out right away. I'm using my brown pepper for the tracing. So I'll just place it here and trace it out accordingly. Alright, so this is what I have as my tracing. So you can see I've traced it out. So I'm going to cut this on fold. Okay, when it's time to cut, I'm going to cut on fold. So I'll just keep this, and then I just want to extend this. You remember our extension was at 6 inches, but I just want to make it a little more bigger. So that will be 8 inches. So I will extend it a little more to that 8 inches because I really need it to. So I'll now take the extension. Okay, so I'll simply go ahead and go up by 1 inch, then I'll connect it back. Alright, so this is it for the front. I can now go ahead and cut on my fabric. So if I'm cutting now, I'll just go ahead. There's no dart. Take note, there's no dart. I'll just cut it out from the waistline. That way, once I get here, I'll just go up to the extension and follow this part and cut out everything. So I'm going to cut this on fabric, and my fabric here, the center front here, the whole of it will be on fold. So this cutting, we are going to cut it later. So for the back, you need to leave 10 inches space. Okay, this 10 inches is for the train. So I left 10 inches space. So now I'll start up again. This is my waistline, my waist. This is the upper hip. For the back, lower hip, I used the same measurement I used for the back. Okay, the same measurement we use, that is what I am using. So here is the knee position. Alright, so here is going to serve as my center back. Then I'm going to impute my waist circumference divided by 4 is 10 inches. Hip circumference divided by 4 is 10.5. I'll mark it here and mark it here. 10.5. That is 42 divided by 4 is 10.5. Then I'll rule my straight line as usual. Then I'll take away 1.5 from 10.5. There I'll have 9 inches. So this is my 9 inches. So I'll also bring that 9 inches down. I'll bring it down to the hem. Then I'm going to connect from the hem with a straight line. But before I do that, this is going to be my extension. So this extension, I'll also add my pepper. It's not up to 8 inches. So I'll just add little pepper to make it up to 8 inches. So I will now go ahead and connect what I have here. Okay, after I'll come back to the extension. So I'll go ahead and connect what I have from here, just like we did for the front, just exactly the same thing. I'll connect here, then I'll bring this one here and connect. Can you see? So here will be straight. Then by the time I add the extension, I will extend it. Then I want you to note that at the center back, we had a contour line for the front. So please don't forget that contour line, which we went in for the upper body center back, and that is 0.75. So at that 0.75, I'll connect it to the upper hip this way. Now I'm going to replace this 0.75. I'm going to replace it right here, 0.75. So if I replace it, then I'm going to do what? I'm going to reconnect. So I'm just trying to, because the bodies that have these dresses actually, just let me say, straight somehow. Okay, so it's not that curvy. So I'm cutting off this and I'm going to cut through here. So now I'll come over to make my extension. So my extension for the back train, I'm going to connect it to that 10 inches. So from here is 10 inches. I'll just come down by, let me say, by 1.5. I don't want the train too much. So I come down from my full length by 1.5. Or I can just connect it because I don't want it to be too much. So I'll just take my train, my back train. I'll just take it to terminate here. Okay, I just want it to flow around without a train. So I'll just come in here and connect to the men's skirts this way. So I will add my pepper and extend this by 8 inches. I just added my pepper and I'm going to extend from that point. Okay, so this was the 9 inches we had from the hip line. So I'll just add 8 more inches. And this is it, just like we did in the front. I added 8 more inches. And I'm going to connect. But before I connect, please, there's a little error we want to correct here. So I'm already cutting my pattern now. Okay, although I lost my video clip, I just made a little adjustment to the back mermaid gown. So if you notice there, you can see we took away 1.5. So that 1.5, I divided it by 2 for the back and added 0.75 here and 0.75 here. So from here we now have our now have our 9 inches. Okay, so from here to here is 9 inches. You can see that. So it's from this 0.75 because of the bum illusion that I connected all the way to the back train, and I connected to the 8 inches. So I just want to explain what I did right there. So I connected back to this point. So if you don't know how to make a mermaid gown, you can go back to the channel to check what I did exactly. So I'm supposed to cut from this point. Sorry about that. Remember, this is the addition we added because of the contour line. So I'll just go ahead and cut following the new adjustments. So once I come here, I'm going to cut out to the, so this is the pattern I'm going to use now to cut the back gown. So I'm going to cut them right away. So let me take this back. So I've cut out my fabric, my pattern for the back. I added 1 inch and 2 inches for seam allowance. So you can see what I have. I added 0.5 inch to hem and 0.5 inch to attach to the upper bodice. So now I'm going to mark out the part that is for back, the part that is on the back side. So make sure you note them. So the next thing I will do now, take off my pattern, join my 1 inch up to the point of my hip. Okay, that's where I'm going to have my zipper. So I just mark this point. I'll start joining 1 inch for the both. So I have both lining and fabric here. So this is my lining and this is my fabric. So I'm going to stitch the side of the zipper right now. I'm done cutting the skirt, as you can see. So this is the front skirt. I'm going to attach it. I have my lining right here. I'm attaching it to the upper bodice now. So after cutting the front pattern piece, I have to cut out the pattern wheel for the front. So I added 0.5 inch seam allowance. So this part I have it on fold. So I just simply go ahead and hairstay and create a notch to identify the center front area. So I've opened it up and I've ironed it out. So I have to use my hemming gum 0.5 inch all through. So now I'll pick up my skirt piece, and remember, this is the line which I told you I want this to start. Okay, so I'll just turn to the right side and create a notch at the center front area of the skirt. So I'll just create a notch to it. Then I'll open it up right away to the right side. So this is the right side. I'll use the notch direction and I'm going to place it and sew. So I'll just go ahead and sew, secure with my pin and sew down. So I've stitched to the end, as you can see. So the next thing I'll do, I'll come from the knee line. Remember that this is the knee line. So we are going to step down by 4 inches. So I just measure 4 inches. Okay, so these 4 inches, I'm not marking too much on the, I'll now make a straight line to the hem and cut it off from that 4 inches. So I put the lining and the fabric together before I splitted it. So you can see where I stopped. So I'll go over and lay the lining and the fabric now. I'm going to lay it right side to right side. So once I lay it right side to right side, I'll secure with my pin and I'm going to stitch. Okay, I'm going to stitch from end to end, give it a good press. So this is what I have after sewing and top stitching. I have to iron it. Okay, so I stitch and top stitch. Then I use my hemming gum. I inserted my hemming gum inside to lay it flat. You can see it's looking neat. So I'm going to attach what I have here to the upper bodice now. I'll also attach the back to the upper bodice. So I'm going to do all of this. So I've already sewn the back, both lining and fabric, leaving my zipper allowance. Okay, the same thing with this, leaving my zipper allowance. So I'm going to attach everything right now to the upper bodice, then shaping this skirt. We'll be leaving only the zipper then before we sew the band. Okay, this is what I have for my band. I've already joined the dress and it's time for us to sew the band. So the band length is my waist measurement plus my zipper, and the band width is 2 inches. Okay, 2 inches. I'm using this part of my, so you can see it's 2 inches. Then I have to overlap, so everything I have when I open it before I iron is 4.5 inches. Then you now overlap, okay, to get your 2 inches. So I'll go over, because I've joined the upper waist and the lower waist, so we have the full gown now. So please join only the fabric. You can see the lining have not been joined. After sewing this, we can join the lining. So I'll go ahead and sew my band. So I'm going to sew my band starting from one zipper line. Okay, so I'll start from the zipper. I'm going to place it just at the waistline, because I want to place it just exactly this way. So I'll just follow whatever inches I have and top stitch and top stitch. Let me do that. So here you can see I've stitched the band up and down. Okay, and I did for the back. So I'm going to join the lining right now. I'm going to join all the lining, close the sides, then sew my zipper. Okay, I will sew my zipper, and then we are done with this dress. We'll jump to the sleeve. Now I'm done sewing the lining and I've reduced my lining. Okay, so you can see my lining, I reduced it at 1.5 inch. So make sure you reduce your lining at 1.5 inch. So now I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to sew from here to here till I go round. Okay. Now I'm done sewing all around the hem. So this is the front, center front. You can see how you will have it after you have sewn it. So once you are done, just spread out the seam and follow the stitching line and complete it. I'll do that for the other one. Turn it around, give it a good press. So I'm done stitching that part. Okay, so before I give it a good press, I want to show you where I'm going to turn it, because I turn everything to the back. So I'll just gently go over to the, I'm going to turn it from the zipper area, because that is where I have my opening. So you can see this is the zipper area. So I'll just go ahead and turn the whole dress to the front before I give it a good press. So this is what I have on the hem. Can you see? So before I give it a good press, I've turned it around. So this is the center front and this is the hem. So this is what you have. So I'm going to iron out like this till I get to the end. So now I've sewn my zip on the fabric alone. Okay, so but I need a perfect inseam finishing inside. I don't want any seam to show. So I'm going to turn the whole dress. So once you turn the whole dress, I'm going to turn the whole dress, as you can see right here, and then I'm going to sew close up this way. You can see, so as you're sewing is closing up, so I'll follow the stitching line and sew my zipper around. I've sewn the zipper. Okay, so you can see everything is tucked in. So I'll follow the sleeve area to turn the dress. So I'll just go ahead and turn the dress from the sleeve area. So I'll dip in my hand and I keep turning. So once I'm done turning, I'll give it a good press. Alright, so after sewing the lining, this is what I have. So you can see I have a neat finishing. So I'll go ahead and give it a good press right now. Then we'll jump into the sewing of the sleeve. So for the sleeve, you need your basic sleeve. So here is my shoulder line for the sleeve, and this is my cap height. This is the bicep, and this is the elbow. So I'm stopping this sleeve at the elbow because the sleeve stopped at the elbow. So if I'm making a pencil sleeve, I'll just go ahead and connect to my elbow. But for this, I'm going to connect it, taking the measurement from the grain line I have 12 inches. So when I open, I'll have 24 inches. So here I've added 1 inch seam allowance to my sleeve already. So I'm going to do what? Expand this sleeve. So to create all those designs, this is my bicep, this is my elbow. So from my elbow line, I'm going to come up by 2.5. Then I'll mark. I'll go in by 4.5. I will mark. So once I've marked, I'll place my pattern ruler this way to create that design. So after I've created that design, I'll come over to the bicep. On the bicep line, I'll also go up by 2.5, and I'll also go in by 4.5. So once I've done that, I'll still position my ruler. You can see how I sat my ruler. I'll take it the same method, the same way to that point. So make sure it is equal. So this is the first sleeve. We have two sleeves here. We have sleeve 1 and sleeve 2. So we'll cut the first one and place the second sleeve on top of it. Now I'm going to create the designs which we are going to trace out. So to create that design, from this sleeve, I'm going to come down by 2.5, or come up from here 2.5. Then that 2.5, I'll start taking it this way. I'll start taking the 2.5. Let me use this part of my, okay. I'll start taking the 2.5 this way. You can see how I'm placing it this way. So wherever I have that dot at 2.5, I will go ahead, and so for the straight part, I'll just connect the straight part. So once I get here, I'll also sit my ruler the same way, and I'm going to connect. So I will do the same here. I'll also take the 2.5 and connect. Alright, so I'm going to cut it out now. So this is the shape my sleeve will give me. That's for the first sleeve I'm going to cut out. So this is how it's going to look like. So I'm going to cut at the back. This is the sleeve back. So if you don't know how to draft a basic sleeve, you can go to the channel. We have a detailed basic sleeve. So what I have here is the front sleeve. Okay, so I'm just cutting out what I have here. Okay, alright, so this is how the sleeve is going to look like, front and back. So you can see that design. So I'll quickly place my pepper. That is my brown pepper for my tracing. So I'll go ahead and trace. So I'll place my sleeve here, my brown pepper here, and I'm going to simply trace it out the same way with my pattern rulers. So I'm going to trace out the parts that will lay on top of this basic sleeve. So I'll trace it out immediately. So once I'm done tracing out, I'm going to label the center. This is this grain line. I'll use G as grain line, and this is the side. I'll use side. So I'll cut it off and trace this. After tracing out, this is what we'll have. So this one will be for the upper sleeve. So I'm sitting it in, and this will be for the lower sleeve. Can you see that? So I'm going to place this part on fold. Okay, on my fabric, this is going to be on fold. So I'll quickly hairstyle and cut out right now. So I'm going to cut out all of this on fold. Then I'll cut one of these. Then later I will cut it out again for the upper sleeve. Right, so I've cut out everything and I cut it on fold. So you can see what I have. So here I have 2 pieces for each, 2 pieces for each, just to turn it like we did before. So I'm going to work on number 2 right now. and this is the base. Okay, so I've cut out this base too for number 2. So this is going to be under and this one will be on top. So here I have 2 pieces of my lining and I have 2 pieces of my fabric. So the first thing I'm going to do now is to construct this. I'm going to sew it now the normal way we usually do for the 2 sleeves. So I'll pick out. So now I have secured it with my pins, so I'll just go up and sew only on top. Okay, then I'll sew the other top too, turn it around, give it a good press. I've sewn the both of them, so only on the upper piece. So I'll just go ahead and reduce the seams. So I'm going to reduce it, turn it around, give it a good press, then bring it back to place on top of the sleeve. So this is what it looks like after I've reduced the seam. So I'll just go ahead and turn it around and give it a good press. Alright, so this is what I have after I've ironed it out. Can you see? So I stitched only this part and trimmed and ironed. So now I'll take off this one and I'll be using this one to demonstrate to you. So for my sleeve, this is my sleeve. So I'll take off my pattern, pick up one of them, which is the fabric. I will lay the right side, then I'll place this exactly on top. So make sure it aligns. So I'm going to secure with my pins right now. So I'll go over to the machine. I'm going to top stitch on top of this, then measure my 2.5 and have a stitch on top of it before I turn with lining. Sewing, as you can see, so I have to take the measurement of 2.5 and stitch. So you can see it's showing at the back too. Okay, so now I'm going to find the right lining that would be for this part. Okay, so the right lining, I'll place it on top like this, and I'll secure it with my pin and follow these stitches the way it is. I'll run on top of it, top stitch, give it a good press. So I'll follow the stitching line and I've stitched the lining. Okay, you can see the lining. So now I'll just make a notch at this point, just a little notch, so that part will be easy for me after top stitching to turn. So I'll just go ahead and top stitch right on top. So now I'm done top stitching everything on the part of the lining. So I'll just turn it back this way, and I'm going to make sure I bring out a little this way. Can you see? So now I'll place my hemming gum inside it. I'll just lift it up. Before I do that, I'll place my hemming gum inside. Then I'll go over to the machine, to the ironing table with my steam iron. I'm going to iron it down. Alright, so I'm done with the sleeves right now. So you can see I've given it a good press, and this is what I have on the lining. I also did the same for this. You can see that. So I'll set it aside. Then we'll go over to the front sleeve, the upper one. So this is the part we did from here to here. So the next one will be directly on the bicep. So I'll just cut out what I have here and repeat the same process for this. Let me do that. I'm done ironing the both sleeves. So I have the right and the left sleeve. So I'm going to use one to show you. So this is the one that matches to each other. So I'm going to lift up, separate the lining of the last one. Okay, and I will stitch round. I will stitch round to hold this and this, because we want to sew this to this to have a perfect inseam finishing. So let me stitch this first. I've stitched the 3 together, and I stitched by the side to hold this also. So now I will bring in the edge. You can see the lining edge. I'll bring this together, the lining edge as well. So I'm going to match it together, secure with my pin. Then I'm going to stitch at 1 inch, which I added as seam allowance. So if you add half an inch, just stitch half an inch. So for me, I'll follow this line this way, and I'll go this way, then turn it around to have a good finishing. So after sewing it, this is what I have. So I'll just quickly turn it to the right side. So once I turn it to the right side, I'll also go over to the machine, to the ironing table, to press it down. Okay, so I just press that part down, and this is what we have at the end of the day. The lining goes this way, and here after pressing it, we have a neat finishing right here. So let me do that. I'm done with the sleeves. I've given it a good press. Everything is neat inside and outside, and I've stitched the lining. So now I'm going to pick up the right side, and I'll sew it to the right side of the dress. So I'll just go in and stitch. So I open up the zipper, and I'll go in this way. I'll turn it this way and then insert it. So once that is done, I'll pin sleeve head to sleeve head and armhole to armhole. Then I'll stitch all around. Alright, so I'm done sewing the sleeve to the bodice, as you can see right here. Okay, so that is how we'll come to the end of this tutorial. So later I'm going to bead all of this, the yellow part. Okay, so thank you very much for coming to this tutorial once again. If you are new to this channel, please kindly subscribe, turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this every day. Like this video, share to family and friends, drop a comment on the comment section and your suggestions as well. Thank you once again. See you in the next class. Bye.